Is there just some unwritten rule that states that any character played by Melissa McCarthy has to end up in jail somehow? I mean, I understand an actor needs to kind of create a brand if they're to stand a chance in Hollywood, but really? My expectations for this film were pretty low going in, and while most films either underperform or exceed my expectations, this film did neither. Pretty much matched my expectations exactly, since it pretty much is exactly what you see in the trailer. Now, to me, it felt like they shot that robbery scene that they were using in the trailer to advertise this film and on the frickin' poster, and then they decided, oh, we kind of need to make a movie around this, don't we? And the problem is that the movie they made around the robbery scene is just an unpleasant mishmash of jokes, set pieces, and formulaic storytelling. The biggest problem for this film, especially if it's trying to either adhere to the 3-act structure or at the very least the structure of most contemporary comedies, is that it feels like we're missing a good 5 or 10 minutes from the beginning of the film. It's like we started right smack dab in the middle with the main character's life falling apart and the start of the wacky road trip. We don't get any real establishment, we don't see any real status quo that ends up getting shattered, prompting the road trip in the first place. I mean, there's hitting the ground running, and then there's just jumping ahead in the story for no clear reason. As for the comedy of the film, there were a few okay jokes, but those are mostly towards the end of the film and don't really warrant sitting through the 90 minutes of unpleasantness. Now, the biggest problem with the comedy is that there's no real contrast to drive it, which in turn ties back to the issue that they don't really establish anything at the beginning of the film. They just start with a road trip and then just keep going. And the main issue is that, yeah, you can get some mileage out of the wild and crazy grandmother, but if our main character is also wild and crazy, things are gonna get dull pretty quickly. Especially if you're gonna have a duo carry your film, you need a straight man, the one who gets annoyed and flustered with the comedic antics. For every Ernie, you need a Bert. And this is why a film like, say, Identity Thief works better than Tammy. Identity Thief, you had Jason Bateman, who's the clear straight man, you had Melissa McCarthy, who was the clear goof. But here, we just have two goofs. And partway through the film, they try to make Melissa McCarthy's character into the straight man, but the transition isn't executed particularly well, and it's mostly done for the sake of advancing the obligatory romantic subplot, which is about as predictable as it gets with comedy movies. Overall, the film just feels pointless. It's not worth seeing at full price, and even the matinee price, which at the time of this recording is around $6.75, is more than I'm willing to pay to see this movie. If you're really curious, just wait for it to come to Redbox or Netflix, because it's just not worth seeing in theaters. And hopefully Melissa McCarthy has some better films lined up in the future, because this film's definitely not going to be doing her any favors this 4th of July weekend. I can promise you that. All of that said, I give Tammy a 2 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Tune in Thursday for my review of Snowpiercer. See you then.